That's it. Oh, I stopped. I'm not listening to you. Oh, you're muted. There we
Oh
go.
yeah, sorry. I was saying that's really sounds like it's been a long journey and 3 years, and I guess it's really been fulfilling.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, if I were to go back, I would do exactly the same thing. I've really enjoyed. This is my passion, right? So this is my life's career. Been doing this for a long time now, and I cannot see myself doing anything different. This is what I really enjoy. Like building software is what I really enjoy doing. So.
Yeah. So what's your day like being a director of computer vision?
So, okay, so I started working for the company that I'm working for 10 years ago as Levatas. That was back in 2010. And, I didn't start as a director. I started as a software developer, and I've been sort of like growing from that point on. Basically, what I do right now is I have a small team. It's software engineers, is machine learning people. We're building a platform, and what I basically do is stay out of their way and help them. So they are doing the things, and I'm trying to give some advice. I'm trying to help them steer, right? A little bit of experience there. Hey, you should do it this way or that way. But that's basically what my day to day looks like there. It's helping that team build a set of models, and these models are computer vision models to do automated vision inspections, and a platform where those models run. So that's basically my day to day. You're muted.
That's really exciting. Our main goal for today event is to discuss about the whole things about learning machine learning. So that include prerequisites, resource tools,
Sure.
like some best practice, and so on. So now back to learning machine learning. What do you think are the most prerequisites for getting started?
Okay. So how do you get started? That's the first question. So
Yeah.
everyone is different, okay, and everyone can have a different path into machine learning. I'm gonna tell you what I think works for a lot of people because it worked for me, and I know other people that also has worked for them. I was a developer first and foremost, so I already had development experience. I knew what software was, and I knew how to build software, and that has been incredibly helpful in my career. Machine learning is about software. Machine learning is building good software as well, right? So knowing and having an understanding on how to use a programming language efficiently and effectively has been incredibly helpful for me. So if you're starting out right now and you don't know what you want to do and you don't have development experience, my recommendation will be go there first. Learn how to use a programming language. Learn how to talk to computers and make computers do what you want them to do, and grow from that point on, right? But start there because that's gonna be one of the most fundamental things, skills that you're gonna need to be successful on machine learning. Now, this is different than analyzing data. This is different than statistics and probabilities. This is something else, like programming is a different skill, right? My recommendation is go and get that skill first. If you don't know where you're going yet, if you don't have that skill, go there first. Now, let's assume that you already know how to program. Let's assume that you are a software developer and you want to take your next step into machine learning. So what should you do, right? A lot of people recommend, well, go and get a math background and, you know, study math because machine learning and math and yada, yada. I usually don't think that is a great way to start. At least it wouldn't have worked for me. Like, that's not the way I see things. I like to start finding problems that I can tackle by acquiring new knowledge. So let me give you an example. The first problem that I worked, and the reason I got interested in machine learning in the first place, was because I was trying to solve something that I couldn't solve correctly just using rules, a rule-based system. So it was very hard to program. And somebody told me, you know what? There is this technique, which is natural language processing, which is funny because I don't even like natural language processing. If you learn how to do this, you're going to be able to solve that problem very efficiently. That's my introduction to the field. Okay, so I need to go and learn something that's going to get me here. That doesn't mean that you should skip the fundamentals. That doesn't mean that you should not pay attention to theory. What it means is that a mentality, if a problem-first mentality, might be very beneficial for you. Start with a problem, do what it takes to solve that problem. And in that process, you're going to start acquiring knowledge they're going to be able to apply, right? Whenever you need to go deeper, whenever the solution that you're finding, that you're learning, doesn't work the way you want it to work, you can go and try to find more knowledge. You can go on deep into the math. You can go on deep into the statistics and probabilities and the theory, etc., in order for you to take the next step. That process, problem first, has been very helpful for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that. Problem-oriented learning. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good name. Problem-oriented learning.
If you have to share 3 to 5 resources according to that theme of running, according to being problem-oriented, what would the resource be if you had to share like 3 to 5 resources to someone?
So the course that I've seen that has the same approach, right? So it's going to start you from this is how you solve it, and then let's start diving deeper into the theory and the math, is the fast.ai course. I think it's a fantastic course. The website is fast.ai, and it's a course that was created for developers. So they assume that you know how to program, that you have Python knowledge, and they try to teach developers how to do deep learning, right? And it's a fantastic course, right? Jeremy, which is the person who teaches the course, he explains an analogy with a game, right? Let's say a baseball game, where they say, you don't teach kids, you don't, like, let's say you want your kid to play baseball. You never take your kid in the classroom and sit him down and start explaining all of the rules of baseball. That's not the way you teach baseball. You take your kid, you give it a bat, you give it a baseball, and you take it out in the field and you start playing. And after you play, after you're running the bases, after you're hitting the ball, you start incorporating rules as they become necessary, right? And that's exactly the same way he teaches deep learning. He teaches you how to play. He teaches you why it's important to play. And then he teaches you the rules of how to play, right? And it's the same idea. Teaches you how to use deep learning. Why do you need to do it that way? And the theory behind everything that you're doing. I think it's a fantastic resource. So that will be the first one. A second very good resource, very practical in nature, it's called Google. By the way, Fast AI is completely free. So you can go and take that course today. You don't have to pay a cent. You don't have to register anywhere. It's 100% free. You're going to be learning about PyTorch, the PyTorch deep learning framework. and Fast AI, which is the library sitting on top of PyTorch. On the other side, Google created a course. It's called the Machine Learning Crash Course. You can also Google it, right? And it's Machine Learning Crash Course, and Google created it. It's a very, it's a basic course for developers. Again, if you're a developer and you want to start and you don't want to just dive headfirst into the theory, you can take the Google Crash Course. Again, very practical, very fast, focusing on the top layer, on the stuff, on how to use this, not diving too deep into the theory, okay? But let's say you are a person that's ready for the theory, and this is gonna be my third recommendation. You really want the theory, you want to go head first. Machine learning on Coursera. So you go to Coursera and you go to machine learning and you're not gonna miss it. There are 3 million courses in Coursera about machine learning, but this one here has so many million students, you won't miss it. It's taught by Andrew Ng, fantastic course. It's a little bit dated from, I think it's from the early 2000 maybe, or from the early 2010, but it's still very, very relevant. Very, very relevant. So yeah, those would be 3 that I would recommend. All of them are free. You can take them anytime.
They're really fantastic. Yeah, how about tools? Do you have any particular choice about tools that anyone who want to be machine learning engineer or anyone who work in machine learning should know about AI on?
Yeah, definitely. So personally, I use Visual Studio Code on my computer, and Visual Studio Code allows me to do all of my Python programming. It also supports notebooks, right? And notebooks are, in my opinion, they are a fantastic way to work, right? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google Jupyter notebooks, right? And that you can get like YouTube videos and they will explain why they are so good. So Visual Studio Code supports, integrated with them, Jupyter notebooks, which is amazing. I also love Google Colab. It's a fantastic tool. It's free and it gives you access to GPUs. And the reason this is important is because if you're doing deep learning, if you're working with a large amount of data that you want to process quickly, your own computer won't be a great choice unless you have a GPU, right? The GPU will make that processing go extremely fast, but GPUs are really expensive. So yes, you can go and buy a GPU and install it on your computer, but you'll have to pay a lot of money to do that. Instead, you can use Google Colab, and Colab will give you access to GPUs for free. So anytime I'm trying to run experiments, I'm trying to see if something works, I'm trying to train a new model, I'm on Google Colab. It's online. So I open my browser, I get there, and I can turn that GPU on, and my work, it's really, really fast, and I don't have to pay a cent. So those will be, like, again, notebooks like Jupyter, Google Colab, and Visual Studio Code. Those would be my top 2 tools that you could use to do your job.
That's nice. I love those tools too, especially notebooks. They make it easier, especially for someone starting out, like writing codes. It's easy and fun to work with.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How about machine learning specific tools?
So machine learning specific tools, I'm going to expand the question a little bit into more like frameworks and stuff. So I personally am a huge fan of TensorFlow. Not a specific reason, and I don't think it's better than any other framework. It's just the one that I started with, and I really like it. I just 5 minutes ago recommended a course that is about PyTorch, which is the Fast.ai course, because it's a fantastic course. So PyTorch is another great framework. So it's sort of like competing with TensorFlow. But I'm a TensorFlow person. That's what I have most of my experience with. But you cannot go wrong by going with PyTorch. Right now, if you look at the numbers and if you look at the analytics, PyTorch is really popular in research circles. So in academia, if you're doing research, PyTorch is the one that's being used the most. While if you talk about the enterprise and production environments, TensorFlow is winning that. Even if you dive a little bit deeper into both frameworks, you're going to see that TensorFlow has been putting a lot of attention into the enterprise side of things and how to deploy and how to run in a browser and how to run it in small devices or edge devices, etc. PyTorch has been staying more towards the research area. So those are the two main frameworks. Personally, TensorFlow on my side, scikit-learn. If you're learning machine learning, when you're starting out, you're gonna have to deal with scikit-learn. Scikit-learn implements a huge collection of machine learning algorithms that you are going to need. So scikit-learn will be a fundamental tool for you. Pandas for data. If you're trying to load data, and I keep repeating data and data, I use both of them. So just excuse my French here, but if you want to load data and process data, manipulate data, Pandas is a fantastic library. You are gonna need one library for visualization. Matplotlib is one of the standards libraries. Again, this visualization is about displaying charts, graphics with the stuff that you learn. You can get a data set and display the data set in different ways. That's a fundamental tool. I call it a communication tool. That's the way the data is going to talk to you. And that's the way you are going to talk to other people and show them what the data is, the story behind the data. So Matplotlib or Seaborn, those are fantastic tools. You can use any of those. NumPy, it's going to be a library, a Python library that you are not going to be able to ignore. That would be it. So if I get to put them, then the entire list: NumPy, Pandas, maybe Seaborn or Matplotlib for visualization, scikit-learn for a collection of machine learning techniques and algorithms, and TensorFlow for deep learning work. That'll be the list for me.
Yeah, that's really a great list. I think for the tools, the choice of tools, for me personally, it comes to the design. Like if I find something simple to work with, like I really like it, and like all the tools you mentioned, they really have a beautiful design. It's really fantastic to work with it. So yeah, it's really great list.
Cool.
It's really hard to learn, especially on the beginning. Like for someone starting out, like it's hard to know the right things to do, the right thing or the wrong things to do. It's really hard. So I think this is a chance to ask you, what are the things that you recommend as a good practice in the learning phase and long practice of things that like someone should never do, at least for how you have seen the things? Like what would you recommend in that scenarios?
Yeah, great question. I mean, so in general, what I would say is, if you're motivated to learn this thing, it's going to happen. So that's a good thing. So make sure you're coming into machine learning for the right reasons, right? Machine learning is a lifelong journey. So it's not easy. It's never going to be easy. Just like development is not easy, right? It's not harder than anything. It's just a lifelong journey for you, right? So it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's not a shortcut to anything. So if you're coming for the right reasons, if you really want to learn and you're committed, this is going to happen for you. It's going to take some time, just like anything else would, but it's going to happen for you. At the beginning, make sure you're consistent, right? And you're going to hear these over and over again. What I mean by this is if you go and spend 2 hours on Saturday reading about machine learning, but then you don't do anything with that knowledge, and you wait another 2 weeks before trying to read another 2 chapters of a machine learning book, it's going to be harder for you to get going, right? You want to make this easy on you, you got to be consistent, right? Even if you don't spend a long time every day, just by doing something day after day and trying to apply your knowledge, that's going to make a huge difference. My recommendation for you is start with a problem and start diving deeper into that problem until you're able to solve it, right? So what problems you might ask, just we're going to talk about that today. I'm pretty sure there are a bunch of problems that you can tackle, but that will be my recommendation. Another way, if you don't want to start with a problem, is maybe you start with a course and you try to apply right away the stuff that they're teaching you, right? You don't know how many people I've seen that go through a course and they completely skip the recommended assignments on that course, right? So you got that session that says, after you finish this chapter, these are 10 questions that you might want to investigate more and 5 exercises that you might want to do. And people skip those and go to the next chapter. Well, you're just leaving your gains on the table. That's exactly what's going to teach you. It's not just watching the video, it's doing stuff with that video. They're giving you exercises that you're going to go and do and finish, and those are going to teach you what you need, right? So videos and going quick through the course is not what's going to help you. So my recommendation would be pick one of those courses and make sure you spend a long time with it, right? The goal is not to finish the course. The goal is to learn, and you learn by taking your time and going through every single thing that's recommended on that course. That'll probably, it's gonna help you. I'm pretty sure it's going to help you. By the way, in my own way of learning, this has been game changer. So I was the person, the goal was to finish the course as soon as possible, right? And the minute I took a pause and I said, I don't care about finishing the course. I care about moving on to the next chapter as soon as I'm done with the exercises on the first chapter. That made a whole difference. I have a book here, pretty sure talked about this book before. So this is Hands-On Machine Learning with Scikit-learn, Keras, and TensorFlow. And after each chapter, there are a bunch of questions after each chapter, right? Things that may or may not be part of the book, but these are questions that that the author of the book thinks are relevant for each section here. Don't move on until you answer those questions. Same thing that happens. So try to go and dive deeper, question by question. It doesn't matter how long it's gonna take you. Do your research and try to answer those questions. That's where the gains are. That's the place. That's where you are going to start learning.
Yeah, that's really nice advice. Thank you. Like me and to many people learning, like there are times that you learn something and you wish you'd have known it maybe like some months before. So I would like to ask you, I guess you have seen a lot of things like for your career over and over. If you have to start over, how would you learn? Or what are the things that you would prioritize here on?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I don't want to make the mistake and say, well, I learned this thing, but I didn't ended up using it. So I would rather learn that thing. But that's, in hindsight, sure, there are tech that you're going to learn in your life that you're barely going to use, or a library that might end up not being useful. But I'm not going to get there. I think if I were to start again, I would put a lot of emphasis in the way I acquire new knowledge. And this is like let me try to think. You know, if you want to fish and you want to be efficient fishing, the best way you can do that is to spend a long time focusing on how to fish better, right? Is the idea. This is, like I mentioned before, a lifelong journey. You're constantly gonna have to be learning new things. So investing time in and tweaking the process that you follow to acquire new knowledge, to learn new things, is going to be extremely beneficial, right? So what happened to me particularly is that obviously as I've been aging and growing, I've been learning what is wasteful for me, what works for me, what doesn't work for me. Back in the day, I was very inefficient. So I wanted to learn something and I learned a ton of stuff that I shouldn't have learned. Or I spent very little time doing the things that I should have. So invest time today understanding what works for you, what doesn't work for you, creating the system for you to get new knowledge. And as you create that system, as you perfect that system, you're gonna be way more efficient learning what matters to you and what's gonna be useful to you. That's what I would change if I were to go back. I would focus more on that from the beginning to make sure from that point on, my career would be better, obviously.
Yeah, thank you so much. All of this question has been around learning side and getting started. So that's things like prerequisites, resource, and best practice. So now we're going to a small section by which is very discussed a lot in machine learning community. That's the balance between mathematics and machine learning.
Right.
So there's so many opinions around it. If you read any either blog post or someone tweets, it's likely that to be different from like someone to someone. So what are your thoughts? Should we be optimizing for being expert in math to do machine learning? What do you think about it?
I think it really depends on what you want to do with your life and where you're going to be working, right? If you're going to be a researcher that's going to be creating state-of-the-art algorithms, you're definitely going to have to spend way more time understanding the underpinnings of the existing machine learning field than somebody that's trying to use what others create, right? The same thing applies to a developer. If you want to build a framework that's based on, I don't know, whatever popular library you can think of, you're going to have to understand, obviously, how that popular library works behind the scenes, right? You're going to have to get way deeper than somebody that just wants to use the library, right? I usually talk to some people that say, well, the math is fundamental. And I ask them, why don't you know how pandas works behind the scenes? Isn't Python fundamental? Isn't pandas fundamental? Why don't you learn how the library itself does what it does? Well, because obviously you don't need it. You can use the library without necessarily understanding how it works behind the scenes. Sure, you have general knowledge, but you don't have to get not down to the nitty-gritty details, right? So again, all of the extremes are bad. Math is a fundamental part of machine learning. Nobody can deny that. But telling people that they cannot use a technique, that they cannot use an algorithm, unless they understand how that algorithm works, I think is disingenuous. I think it's putting too much emphasis on something that it might not be needed. Here's the thing, right? A lot of people, when they hear that, let's say myself, I'm going to be using an algorithm without necessarily understanding how that algorithm works. They immediately think, oh, but if you do that, then that might be problematic. Well, guess what? Everyone has to gain the respect and trust from their team. So it doesn't matter how I learn machine learning. It doesn't matter if I know a lot of math or if I don't know a lot of math. I have to build trust with my team. So the code that I produce, right, my team trusts that code. The process you use to learn does not matter. If you learn the math first, if you learn the theory first or last, it doesn't really matter. So I wouldn't focus too much into that conversation because I don't think it's a productive conversation. I focused more on you and what is the best way for you to learn things. Some people need to understand the math before they actually use something. That is great. Some people don't need to understand the math before they use something effectively, right? We've all been searching lists, right? And using search functionality without necessarily understanding how search works, right? But it's the same thing you can say about any algorithm and about any framework. I'm not saying that math is not important. I'm saying that the order that you follow to be productive and to produce value is not necessarily fixed. You can choose your own path and learn the math whenever you think is necessary, if it's necessary for you. That's what I will have to say about that.
Thank you. What have you seen as a good way to learn it, balancing? I remember you write a great article about it, but maybe for someone listening to us.
Yeah. So, what I personally do in my day-to-day job is, again, I want to solve something, and I focused on finding a solution that solves that. Okay. Before I use that solution, I make sure I have a general understanding of why the solution works and very high level how the solution works. That does not mean I know the nitty gritty details of the math that makes that solution possible. I don't get that deep, okay? So I just want to understand this is a method that's gonna solve my problem. This is why this method works. This is how it does it. That's it, very, very general understanding. If I need to dive deeper, because you know what, sometimes I use that solution and it doesn't work the way I was expecting it to work. So it doesn't work well, I have to debug it, I have to maybe make a modification to it. At that point, I'm going to start seeking for more information. I'm going to start diving a little bit deeper. I'm going to maybe require to understand the math behind the scenes, but I'm only gonna do it at that point, right? I'm not a math person myself. I don't think I'm a great mathematician, not even a good one. So that's not what I'm going to prioritize. I'm going to prioritize a more pragmatic approach of, let me try to use this. Let me see in real life how it works. And if I need to go deeper, I'm gonna go and seek for more. That's the way I go about it.
You really focus on what matters. Coming from math and machine learning, I think it's a good time to talk about software developers. It's really hard, but a lot of it is maybe not knowing or not having a lot of information, because machine learning also, like you said, is part of software development. It's writing
Right.
code, even if there's data as another input. But a lot of developers, they are afraid, and I really like how you like to welcome them on your tweets. So what do you think? So you have been a software developer and you have done machine learning. Why do you think software developers get real afraid when they want to jump from developing websites
Right.
or desktop program or anything? Why are they afraid to jump from that to machine learning?
Yeah. Yeah, great question. I think there are two main reasons. So number one, it's we're usually afraid of what we don't know, right? So changing is hard, and machine learning seems like it's a complete different thing. So we're usually afraid of that, just human nature. And the second thing is, if you think about it, machine learning is pretty new when you compare it to general software development, right? And most of the information that's out there, most of the books and courses and videos have been created uh, by research people, by academia, right? So those put a lot of emphasis on the math and the theory and the hard part, right? There is not a lot of content created by people that are using machine learning, that are looking at machine learning from a more pragmatic point of view. And by the way, I'm not saying that something is wrong and something is right. We need a fusion of both academia and production in order to to produce the content and produce everything that's going to help people. But when you get a lot of content coming from this side, that content is coming from a point of view that its developers do not connect with it, right? So developers are usually pragmatic. Developers are very used to logical thinking and doing things. As soon as you get them into the theory part, that's sort of like there is a gap there, right? The reality is very different. You can do and have a huge impact by using machine learning techniques without needing a PhD, without needing a master's degree. That's the reality of it. You don't have to become a researcher in order to use those techniques, right? I've talked to a lot of brilliant researchers, and they don't know how to use the stuff that they're researching in a production application, right? Their focus is somewhere else. They're trying to advance the field doing something very different, right? So again, for somebody, why they're afraid is mostly about information. I promise you that in 3 years, we're gonna be looking at a very completely different picture. A lot of people that are afraid today, as more and more information, and as more and more people start using the frameworks and the libraries and the tools that the community is creating to use machine learning, as more people get into that, you're going to see way more information and more people jumping in and helping and using these tools without being afraid that this is going to be too hard or this is so different. I promise you this is going to change very rapidly.
Let's hope so. There are really a great movements going on, yeah, from both research and production, yeah. So how can a good software developers, they're really good, most of them, in writing programs. So how can software developers turn into a good machine learning engineer?
Yeah. I would say, most people think about switching. Most people say, well, you're a software developer. Why would I want to switch into machine learning? And I think the right word is not switching. You don't have to switch anything, okay? Switching implies leaving the old behind and embracing the new. That is not a good approach, in my opinion. I want you to incorporate machine learning into your career. Don't switch away from software development. Just incorporate new techniques, right? Just like when you learn how to build a website and all of a sudden you want to start learning how to build APIs, you don't switch from front end to full stack. You incorporate new knowledge, right? Now you learn to do something else. The software that you're able to produce now is better. The same thing you can do with machine learning. So don't think about jumping. Think about what can I add to my tool set that's going to enable me to work on different problems, to solve different problems. That's what machine learning is about. Guess what? A machine learning engineer has to build APIs. Machine learning engineer has to build software. right? So you still need all of those skills. You're just adding more skills. So I think that's the mentality that you need to have to approach this. What else can I learn that's gonna enable me to be a little bit better?
That's a good way to put it. I think one of my regrets actually is that I don't have a software background. So like for some reason, I wish I would have been a good software developer before being a machine learning engineer. So I think for someone listening to us, if you really have, if you already build programs, build websites, any kind of program, I think it's really a good advantage for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's now take a small break, a little bit introducing the events again, maybe for some people who have joined us in the middle or maybe joining us now. So this is Pioneer Events. It is hosted in partnership with deeplearning.ai. Me, I'm the organizer of the events. I'm Nyandwi, and I'm with Santiago. He's very active on Twitter. He's actively creating content. He has a newsletter that is undefeated.io. Should check out. Every week he writes something that it is really intuitive. And also he has some courses on Gumroad, which are way different from other courses. If you check out or if you follow him, you probably know how the course is organized, or maybe you should check out. And also, yeah, this event is supported by deeplearning.ai, and I'm really happy to have all of you joining us from different parts of the world. And to keep our conversation going on, we're about learning, that is prerequisites, resource tools. And we talked about math and also software developers as well, and how they become so afraid to break into machine learning. But when you learn things, it's nice, but there's something lacking. And I know you like to talk about it too, and that is building projects for portfolio. So how does someone put themselves out to the world? Before this, I should actually say that maybe a little bit about my story. Like, it's really hard to make something. Like every time, it's really hard. Even writing a tweet, it's really hard. Like it's somehow hard. Like you start to think about how people are going to perceive you. Even getting something that can combine people, it's really hard for a lot of people, including me.
Right.
So how does someone like put themselves out to the world?
So number one, it doesn't happen overnight, right? So it's about the repetitions, right? It's about practicing. Uh, I usually, or I've shown people some of my first tweets and the first few threads that I created, and nobody cared. It's honestly, and they were mediocre tweets, right? But it's about believing that you can make it and understanding the path, understanding that I'm going to start creating the content today, and I'm not sure how to do it, but I'm going to try, put it out there, see what works, see what doesn't work, and keep going down that line. And that's all that's there is to it, right? As long as you keep sharing, I can promise you your content is going to start becoming more visible, and more people will start helping you. People will start giving you feedback.
Yeah.
People will start connecting with your words, giving you ideas, right? Interacting with you. And that's where everything starts rolling really, really rapidly. At the beginning, it feels like you're talking to a void. You create a blog today and nobody's reading that blog, right? So, but you need to keep repeating. You need to keep showing up every single day. And again, I started Twitter back in May 2020, I mean, when I started seriously, I have an account since 2009, but when I started seriously, it was in May 2020. And I was posting content and nobody cared. Like I was getting 0 likes, 1 like 1 comment, maybe if I were lucky. But I kept repeating, and you know, the content becomes better. Like I read the stuff that I posted back then and I'm like, oh Jesus, that's so bad, right? It doesn't make sense, and I cannot understand the idea. It's the practice what makes the master. So if you want to create an account, if you want to start posting content, just keep that in mind. It's going to happen. It's about you interacting with it. You know, it's the repetitions. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard, but it's nice to also hear that it's possible, because it's really easy to even give up. Like you have life, a physical life, and also there's something like online, which is like a virtual things, and yes, it is virtual. So it's really hard, like to 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 give up. None, sorry,
Yeah.
it's really easy to give up. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
I should remember that every time I want to
Yeah.
give
The
up,
other
or
thing is, I
maybe
mean,
anyone who are.
you mentioned something that's very real, right? So if you have a life and you're doing this and you are not sure why you're creating content, you're gonna end up giving up, right? Now, the reason I don't give up is because creating content fulfills something that I need, and that is my need to learn new stuff. Okay, so yes, I do this every day in my job, but I cannot use my job to learn everything that I want to learn. So I need different avenues to acquire new knowledge, okay? Because I cannot apply everything that I want to learn on my job. That's not the way jobs work. So I do this, but how do I practice? Every time I read a book or I read a new article or a new technique, how do I practice it if I cannot do it on my job? Well, one way is trying to teach other people, trying to write about it, right? That's my way to practice the new knowledge that I'm acquiring. That's why I have Twitter and why Twitter is fundamental to me. That's why I have Medium, and Medium has become fundamental to me because it's my way to explore ideas and to learn about them. In the process of doing that, I'm teaching other people. And that is great. That is an excellent byproduct of something that I'm doing for myself, very selfishly. Now people can take advantage of that. And that's a win-win situation. And that's why I don't give up, because it's really helping me.
Yeah, like you mentioned, it's you use it as a way to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we can also adapt to that. But is there any other benefits of being active on social media,
Oh, yeah.
especially for someone starting out, like building portfolio, trying to write, is there
Absolutely.
any other benefit?
So number one, networking, right? If you're active in social media, you're going to meet a lot of people, right? And those people, guess what? Those are the ones that are going to give you a job in the future. Those are the ones that are going to recommend you for a job in the future. Those are the ones that are going to send opportunities to you. Even if they don't give you jobs, they know somebody that's going to give you a job in the future. So networking, it's one of the most fundamental things you should do in order to open up the number of opportunities in your future, in order to ensure that you're also going to get new opportunities. That's number one thing. The number two thing is my Twitter, it's part of my portfolio. That's my portfolio for any potential employer in the future, right? Or any career change that I want to do. My thoughts are there, and I keep my Twitter pristine. So as to show to anyone, this is the way I think, this is the way I write, this is what I know. That's my Twitter. So it can act as that place, right? Where people are going to be looking at your work and they're going to be saying, wow, I really like to work with this person, right? So just by ending there is opportunities and the possibility for you to showcase your skills. Those are great benefits that you should definitely consider for sure.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's really benefits. Now let's turn to jobs and interviews. I think it's been not long when you shared your ideas on resume things and job things. It's not been a long, maybe a week or two. So you have interviewed many people and reviewed many resumes. What are the things that you saw most of us lack when we are applying for jobs?
That's a great question. And so my main issue with resumes today is that I don't think people understand what the goal of a resume is. So you get all resumes that are either very disorganized and you're not sure, you have to sort of like fish information within the resume, try to find and match the information, or you get resumes that are sort of like trying to give me your entire life history, and that's not what I'm looking for. So resumes are a way for you to tell me that you are going to be a good candidate for that job position. That's the answer that the resume, or the question that the resume has to answer. The goal of a resume is getting a phone call. That's it. The resume is not gonna get you a job. The resume is not gonna, make your compensation better. The resume is going to get you a phone call. It's going to get you your foot in the door for an opportunity. That's it. So you want to optimize your resume to the job position. It is extremely frustrating when you're asking for a Python developer that knows computer vision and you get a resume from a person that does not know Python and plasters all over the resume that they are a C++ developer. There is no match here. I'm clearly talking about Python. So even if you don't know Python, at least tell me that. At least take the effort to tell me I do not know Python. I'm very good at C++, and I'm sure I can pick up Python in this much time. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, make sure you take an effort to match your resume to the position that I have open. Now, I understand that a lot of people, their strategy is to mass apply to different jobs. Like they take the resume, they put it on a website, and that website is going to apply to 500 jobs. And that way it's impossible to tailor your resume to a job position. I understand that that's a perfectly valid technique. That's not what I would do, but everyone is different. If you're trying to maximize the probability of getting a call back, make sure your resume is speaking to the job position. If I'm asking for computer vision, Python, in order to build this type of application, make sure your resume is talking about that. I am a computer vision engineer. I'm an expert in Python, or I have this many years of experience with Python, and I've built this and this and that application that are exactly like the problem that you're trying to solve. That resume will 9 out of 10 times get a phone call back. A resume that is a random resume will not. So that will be my main recommendation for people. Tailor your resume to the job position.
And one thing which is really hard, actually, based on what you shared on that day, it is to remove all noise. So how to remove noise in the resume?
Yeah. So number one, cut it down to one page. That's the main. So force it into one page. That doesn't mean just making the font really, really small. that means cutting out anything that's not going to help you to get a phone call. So for example, a lot of people put their education background and they tell me the coursework that they went through, like the classes that they took. Is that going to help you get a phone call? Probably not. Is your GPA going to get you a phone call? Probably not. Just get rid of that. Get rid of any information that is not going to help you get a phone call. If you're applying to a computer vision position, don't tell me that you took a course in telecommunications. It's not relevant to the position. It's just making it hard for the person who's reading your resume to find what's relevant. And if they don't find what's relevant, they're going to move on, right? I think one study says that on average, hiring managers take 6 seconds reading every resume. 6 seconds, okay? So you can start counting now, and 6 seconds later, you're gone. So what can you do to ensure that that hiring manager does not throw away your resume within 6 seconds? Best advice ever, get rid of everything that's distracting. Get rid of any information that does not ensure you're getting a phone call. That's it.
Thank you. So let's say that maybe, I'm not sure about how many people are listening to us or are watching us, but let's say that it's 100 people. And all of those 100 people apply that device. So they make their resume one page, they remove all the noise. So there's still 100. How can someone address how or tailor their resume to differentiate themselves with almost anyone, with almost any of those 100? Is there a way like to make that happen, to differentiate oneself from the others on that single page?
Yeah. So number one, creativity plays a role here. I was telling a story yesterday about how somebody on a resume, they did something completely different and did an analysis on how many hours of every single machine learning related subject they have taken in their lives, and did the very super cool analysis that lifted that resume. Now, here is the important thing. So there are two ways that you're going to have to be different. Okay, so one is in your resume and the second one is during your interview. You want to make sure during that interview that you are the candidate that they pick. So the resume is, if you remove the noise from your resume and you make sure you tailor that resume to the job position. So basically you're looking for a person to help you. I want to answer by telling you I'm that person. And if that is a match, and again, it's not that hard. If you read the job position, they're going to tell you exactly what they need. Make sure you address that on your resume. That's it. If they're asking for Python experience, you need to put in your resume what your Python experience is. If they're asking for somebody with the capability of building computer vision solutions, you need to talk about your experience building computer vision solutions. Let's put the resume apart. That's very simple. I don't think that's going to be the problem. The cool part comes during an interview. You might be applying for one position and there are 100 candidates, okay? So how do you differentiate yourself? I think that's where your experience is going to shine, and the experience that you've had doing the things that the company needs is what's going to make the whole difference, right? This is something that's very common for people that are starting in the industry. They do not have experience, so they cannot go and say, well, I've worked for such and such company and I've built this and that. That's where you need to dedicate time to build a portfolio, to sort of like create on your own applications that are relevant for the job, right? Yesterday I did a Twitter space and we were talking specifically about this, how many people do the same boring projects and they expect a different result. Like web developers go and build a calculator and put it in their profile. There's nothing wrong with building a calculator. Just understand that every other developer is building a calculator. So that is not gonna set you apart. Every developer goes and builds a website, their own portfolio website with different pages and clicks and about page. Every other developer is doing the same thing. So you have to differentiate yourself by building interesting things, by building hard things, things that you can talk about. This is what happens, and it's extremely, it's beautiful, I think, right? If you go to an interview with me and you don't come prepared, what I mean by prepare is you don't have anything interesting to talk about, I'm going to be leading that interview and I'm going to be asking questions because I want to understand whether you know what you're talking about or not. Regular interview. However, if you worked on a very interesting problem and you have to talk a lot to talk about that, we're going to be talking about it. Our interview now, it's on the topic that you know, on the topic that you can be talking the whole day about. So the interview is on your terms, not on my terms. And that is a great advantage for you because you know exactly how to answer and how, because you built the project. So one specific example, okay? Talking to somebody and I told him, just build a web browser. You're a developer, you want to show off your skills, build a web browser. You don't have to compete with Chrome or Firefox. Maybe you build a text or a web browser that's based on text. So basically I give you a URL and you're gonna strip out all of the HTML and CSS. You don't care about any of that. And you're just gonna format the text. We can browse web pages from the terminal. The goal here is not necessarily building something useful. The goal here is for you to showcase that you care, that you know. And now we're gonna be talking because that's gonna pique my interest. And I'm gonna start asking, how do you build that? And do you have any sort of cache? How do you cache web pages? How do you make sure that this works? And how do you render links? And how can you go from one link? And now we are talking on your terms, on the projects that you've built. So again, just to summarize, a great way to go in and kill in an interview is showing up with experience that could be from an enterprise project that you built on your previous company or from projects that you've built on your own. Show up with experience that's relevant and that's interesting. If you do that, there is a very high chance that you're gonna get that job. That's what I would do.
Thank you so much for sharing all these tactics. I think they will really help a lot of people listening to us or maybe listening later because this event will be recorded in one way or another. So let's move on to some more things. We are getting close to actually to the end, but we have a few questions from people on in the comments and also some pre-asked question. So machine learning is really hard, like you've been talking, and also it's quite demanding, and also it's like never ending. Where like once you get started, it's really going to be a journey until you find something else or you made any switch. But in the meantime or in the journey, how to add or what are the ways you think to add fun and joy in the journey? It's hard to do things which you don't get rewards in the way. Like, how do you think about it?
I think, that's a very cool question. I think in my case, it's about being able to use what I learned and seeing the implications of that, right? So like creating something that's useful, that makes a process better, that helps somebody. I think that's sort of like the payoff and what's fun for me and why I'm gonna go for more. Like I usually say that I love to measure things so I can beat them, right? So I really like to understand how something is working, measure what that means, and then try to make it better, make it faster, make it cheaper. And the continuous process of measuring, beating that is extremely rewarding for me. For some people, it's just the sake of helping other people. For some people, they literally, the way they measure success is by me learning and doing this stuff, I'm helping lift communities. I'm helping lift other people, giving scholarships to people. That's great. So however you like or what success looks like for you, if machine learning is a path to get that success, I think it's going to be an extremely rewarding field. So it's like, I don't think you're going to need extra motivation. Like if you need something extra, you're probably not in the right path. Like if you're doing this because you like it, you're going to find definitely super fun to see the results of your efforts, in my opinion.
It's cool. So what are your favorite books? Two tech and two non-tech. You already showed us one, actually.
Yeah, so this is definitely one of my favorite technical books. Is this one here. It's an amazing book. The second technical book that I would recommend is called Deep Learning with Python, and it's by Francois Chollet, the creator of Keras, which is a library that's part of TensorFlow now. It's a deep learning book. It's focused on deep learning. It's an amazing book as well. It's a very good reading. I'm super excited because the second edition of the book is coming out on September. And the author says that it's like 75% new content. So I'm super excited about reading that, waiting for that. So those are the two technical books that I would recommend anyone to read. The non-technical books, okay, so this one here, it's one of them. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. This is a New York Times bestseller. You definitely have to read this, and it's going to help you with something that I was talking about before. It's creating a system that you can use to learn new stuff. A lot of the knowledge here, the sort of like the advice here, I've incorporated in my life one way or the other. So it's a very good book. The second non-technical book that I would recommend people to read is The Lord of the Rings. I'm a huge fan. And actually somewhere here, I can't see because it's not in focus, but somewhere here, I have an edition. I think it's maybe over here, somewhere. It's somewhere. I cannot, let me see. Maybe it's, so
yeah, it's okay.
Come on. It's not focusing, but somewhere there I have a beautiful edition of The Lord of the Rings. It's in Spanish, but that's a book that you really need to read, and you will definitely enjoy it if you haven't. So those would be the books that I would recommend people to read.
Thank you for your recommendation.
Sure.
I'm really excited for deep learning with Python books as well.
So Python books, like if you're looking for a good Python book, you've got, I think the name is the Python Crash. What is the name? Let me just Google it really quick because it's important. Python.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so the name of the book is Python Crash Course. That's a great book to learn Python. The second great book to learn Python is Automating the Boring Stuff. So either one of those two books is a great introduction to Python, and you're going to learn a ton off of them. So yeah, Python Crash Course or Automating the Boring Stuff. So those are great books.
Thank you so much for all this recommendation. So we are actually getting to the end, and the next discussion is going to be about the mix of life and tech. So how do you stay consistent?
How do I stay consistent? I think So number one is there is something that my job pushes me to get consistent, right? So if I want to keep building solutions, if I want to keep providing value, I have to stay on top of what's happening in the industry so I can actually, have a better impact. Like, if I build a solution today that's too slow, I have to fix that problem, right? And as new methods come out, as new techniques come out, I have to start incorporating those to make that better. So part of it is part of my job. The second part is learning, and it's just the be eager to be better, right? So what can happen is that if I stop reading, if I stop seeking new content, I'm gonna be outdated really, really quick. Like in 3 years, your knowledge is gonna be not completely useless, but it's definitely gonna be hard for you to find a company that's gonna want to hire you. So this is a field where you have to stay on your toes. You constantly have to seek new knowledge. And I enjoy that process, right? I think over the years, I've learned how to enjoy that. It might be hard for me to tell you this is why I enjoy it, but I learned to enjoy the process of getting new knowledge and teaching other people. Again, this Twitter thing, right? I'm posting content on Twitter, posting content on Medium, forces me to research, to learn, to find new ways, to answer hard questions. I usually do these Twitter spaces where people come and ask me questions out of the blue. And I need to be prepared because people are going to be coming, hey, I have this problem and I'm trying to build this thing and it doesn't work. Why do you think that's the case? And I try to help them sort of like get unstuck. I need to prepare if I'm going to do a good job there. That forces me to keep learning, and it keeps me motivated and, trying to do something better every single day.
Yeah. Um, so actually talking about Twitter Spaces, I know you like to host a lot of spaces, but a lot of time I like to miss them. Do you like to run them regularly on certain time?
So I don't have a specific day. I usually do it after work whenever I have time. Like maybe I have a couple of hours that are nothing to do during that time, and then I just decide to host one. I usually don't even schedule them because I don't know when I'm gonna have the time. But almost every week, I either host a space or I participate in somebody else's space that I think I can contribute. So you're gonna see me on spaces about machine learning or software development in general, or spaces about content creation, like how to, build an audience, how to create content consistently, etc., etc. Those are usually the two topics that you know, I like to participate in. But yeah, I do it weekly, but I don't have like a regular schedule.
Yeah. Thank you. So do you have rules that guide your life and works? Like
Do I
things
have
that
what?
you
Sorry.
say, do you have rules
Oh,
or
rules.
rules and yeah, like that you always make sure to follow, like about life and works?
Rules. Well, I don't know if these are rules, but I do have my day. My day, it's pretty consistent, and that has helped me a lot. Like for example, when I wake up, the first hour, when I wake up, I have half an hour that's about reading, and then I have an hour that's for working out and doing exercise every morning, and then I have a certain time to do my work, certain time, like Sundays are my days to write. I write a lot on Sundays. So I don't schedule every single minute of my day. I leave a lot of room for random stuff to happen. but I do have big buckets that they have become a habit. And understanding and be ready for, I'm gonna be writing on Sunday, helps my mind and my body get ready for it, right? And when I get on Sundays and I sit down in front of the computer, I usually have a lot to write about, right? So that sort of like helps me. Being the consistency helps me a lot. And I think it's something that, again, you can try and see. Removing a little bit of randomness from your life might help you achieve your goals, right? It's again, we've talked about this at the beginning. The consistency, the showing up, the at bats is what's going to make you better. So just make sure you schedule that into your life. That will, good things are going to happen if you do that.
Thank you. I'm not sure if this question is not repetition, but I'll ask it anyway, and maybe you'll have something else to add, because you have been really giving a lot of great advice on being consistent and learning as well. Yeah, you are really quite active. Like, you are always active, and you produce a lot. So how do you keep balance as a man, Twitter machine learning guy? Like, for anyone who doesn't know, listening to us, Santiago creates contents on Twitter. So he's about to reach 100K followers. So if you can imagine, to have that large audience, it's not about creating like average stuff. So that means you really produce a lot of great work, like either on Twitter or at your profession day to day. So how do you keep balance between those three things and you stay sharp?
Yeah. So again, it's the consistency and trying to say no to a bunch of stuff, right? Trying to remove anything that's not gonna help you with your goals. If you understand where you're going, now you can decide to do things based on the place where you're going, where you want to get. So is this going to help me get there faster, right? So whenever I try to read something, and if it's not, I have my time to entertain myself, to just do random stuff. But if not, is this article going to help me reach my goals? And if the answer is yes, I'm going to read the article, I'm going to learn something new, and that's going to produce something that I want to talk about now. So if you look at my life, I have a bunch of stuff here. It's full of papers like this, right? With notes of stuff that I have to do, that I don't do. I live off of these small notes. Like I have a whole thing here, of notes here, where I write down every single day, this is what needs to happen today. This is what's important. This is what I'm not going to be focusing on. And having that daily organization helps me being effective, right? It helps me that whatever work I'm doing, it's very visible, right? So it's not about working long hours. It's not about working more than anyone else. It's about making sure I have very little waste. And the time that I put towards something is actually helpful for me. That's what I do.
Yeah, you are really you're really great. I think there are lots to learn from you. So, and I'm also really inspired by work as well. So I hope also, like, one of the reason why like we learn these events, like one of the reason why I started to learn these events, especially starting machine learning community and Kigali, Rwanda. It's not only because here machine learning is kind of getting started, just like in many places as well, like machine learning is new things, but also like being like learning a lot from people all around the world. Like that's what really inspired me. So yeah, thank you. I think you inspire a lot of people about that.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. So I was going to, this is actually last question, but we still have maybe one. Uh, but I'm afraid to ask it because of how you structure things. Like a lot of people are really obsessed with motivations. Like there's so many great motivation contents. So do you listen to motivation? I was afraid to ask it because like there's no way you listen to them, just wondering.
Yeah. So, I'm not especially attracted to it, but of course I listen to some motivation. Like I follow accounts that try to motivate other people. And motivation has the same effect on me than on other people, right? Motivation is good. Like you get, sometimes you're feeling down and reading something that's nice is gonna lift your day. It's gonna make your day better. Now, I'm not constantly seeking it, but that doesn't mean that I do enjoy it. Like this book, for example, it's some sort of like motivational book as well. It's self-help. It's something that's gonna help you do better, and it's gonna motivate you. Or the 4-hour work week. That's another book that it's motivational, right? And I've read it and I really like it. So yes, I do, but I'm not necessarily like, for example, I don't write motivational content most of the time. Some of my content might come across as motivational because people get motivated to start learning machine learning. But I don't think I'm a motivational author. I'm more of a technical author than a motivational one. But again, just like any regular person, sure, I do enjoy some motivation from time to time.
Yeah, and I think like there's really a side effect to that. Like based on how like our brain take things, like the motivation are really good. I'm sharing my experience, just like they're really good. When you listen to them, you like them really much. Then you can end up then replacing it with the things that you should actually do.
Mhm.
So yeah, maybe I guess we have to put balance to that. It's actually why I added this question.
Yep. Cool.
It, I I find it really hard to move, like to move from being motivated to do the actual work. Like
Right. So you need to do it.
yeah,
You need to put a little bit more attention in the action part. Like the motivation is great, and you are like feeling fire up, but now you have to go and execute. Right? You have to capitalize on that motivation. If it just fires up, but you keep sitting and you don't do anything with it, it's not gonna produce results for you, right? So you have to sort of like bridge that gap and go from wow, I feel so good to let me actually do something with this energy here, right? That's the gap that you want to bridge there.
I love that's uplifting sound. Like wow, you have to do like things,
Yeah.
and I think this is actually like useful for yeah for a lot of people listening to us or who listen to this. That's like for something like machine learning that is hard. Like machine learning only it cannot be sustainable without like things that push someone to do
Right.
to keep going. Yeah, so I think it was really nice to hear about life sites. So thank you for sharing
Sure.
your experience. There's one last thing, which is actually to sum up for this whole conversation, and I came to find out that your background wasn't part of the life. I for some reason we started late on life side. So maybe if you have a way to add it, to add how you like you how you have come a long way on this last question, I think that would be great. I'm saying this because or maybe even it's actually your latest tweet, like you shared how you start with programming things. So
Mhm.
maybe people can check that out, but if you can add it to, that would be great. So you have had a long and great career, and you also built a whole range of intersecting and useful skills. Like a lot of people listening to us may be young and getting started in their careers.
All right. Ajahn, I lost you there for a second.
To young folks
I lost you there for a
with
second. I
what
couldn't
they are.
hear.
Oh, I'll repeat. I'm sorry for that.
No,
Can you hear
that's
me
cool.
now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I was saying you have had a long and great career, and you have also built a whole range of intersecting and useful skills. So a lot of people listening to us may be young and getting started in their careers. So what advice can you give to young folks wherever they are?
Interesting. I think that the main advice is build things, like use the knowledge that you're getting. Like it doesn't matter how much you know theoretically if you don't go and apply that knowledge. So I think I mentioned this, but when you're taking a course, don't just go for the course. Don't, like, take your time, build things with it. Like go and use that. And using that doesn't necessarily mean to go and build the software that does it. It doesn't need to be that. It might be as simple as answering the questions that they are recommending you to explore. It might be doing something with that knowledge. It might be teaching other people. It might be talking to a friend. It might be like bringing somebody else that wants to do it with you, but do something with that knowledge. And that way is the only way you're going to be able to maximize what you get out of the stuff that you're learning. If I were to go back, that's where I focus my time, besides understanding how I learn and how to do it more effectively. It will be on trying to squeeze as much juice out of every single opportunity that I get in my life, trying to learn better and deeper by doing things, not only by listening to things, but by actually acting on them. That will be the main advice that I will have to give anyone starting or in their path already, to become better. That's the advice that I give myself every time I try to learn something new. I have to keep repeating myself, I need to do something with this, right? I cannot just read this article and leave it like that because I'm going to forget. I need to go back and teach somebody or try to use it, or investigate a little bit more. I gotta do something with it.
Um, Thank you so much. That's really solid.
Cool.
Now is the time to go for questions. So the pre-asked question from social media, we have one from LinkedIn and other one from Twitter. So Eugene Desiree asked how to build a strong and diverse and caring online community around machine learning.
Just start giving, and people will definitely come. Start giving, start interacting with people, and they will come for more. That's the best advice that I have to give, because that's the way I've been building my community, right? And the people that I know, the people that I've interacted with, this conversation that we're having is thanks to that community, right? We met there, we met in Twitter. So if you go there and you start sharing what you know, however much it is. I'm not an expert on anything that I've done in my life. I just have the time doing stuff, but I'm not a PhD, highly decorated professor that's inventing new things. That's not who I am. I'm not there. I just try to share whatever I know, right? If I read a web page and I think it's interesting, I'm going to summarize it and I'm going to share it for other people so they can also understand it. And if you keep doing that over and over again, people will start joining you. People will start asking you questions. They will come for more. They will start following you. So my advice is show up and do the simple things very well for a long time. And that's you're gonna build a great community around your content for sure.
Another question came from Twitter. He's Vikarman. He asked, I'm planning to pursue masters in data science this spring. What would you suggest me to follow from the start of my master so that I can make a good career in machine learning?
Great question. So in my master's, when I went to my master's, something uh, that we realized really quick is that people who did not have a development background, a software development background, it was hard for them. So a lot of the classes that I personally took were very technical classes, very hands-on classes. So people who didn't know how to program, they struggled a little bit because not only they were struggling with the new material that they were learning, but also they didn't know how to program that. So it was like double penalty there, right? So it was, they had to learn how to program and they had to learn the new content that we were talking about, right? Like a computer vision class, right? For example, in the computer vision class, we were learning new methods, how to implement maybe, I don't know, a blur effect. But people who didn't know how to code, they had to understand the math of creating a blur effect, plus how to develop that math. So if you're going to pursue a master's and that master's is going to be technical, my recommendation for you right now is start learning how to program. Try to get some skills there, right? So start preparing on that. And that would probably be one of the fundamental things that is going to help you through your master's. The second thing that I would say is, hey, be ready to enjoy it. And we've talked about this during our conversation today. Make sure you're doing something with it. Don't just go through the master's just to get a degree at the end. Do something with that knowledge. I was lucky enough that during my master's, I was also working in the industry. So I got tons of opportunities to literally take a class and get back to my work and say, I think I can apply that class here. I was lucky enough. If you are in the same position, do that. That will definitely multiply what you get out of your masters. If you're not in that position, at least find opportunities to use that content. Teach other people, write about it, whatever it is, but definitely do something with what you're gonna be learning and enjoy it. I think it's a great learning opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. Now let's move to a question from the live audience. I would actually like to thank all of you who are joining us. So I know you had to make some sort of sacrifice. Like for some people, especially from India sides, who I think there are many joining us. Like it's around maybe 8 or around
Yep.
9 p.m. So
So it's
we
late.
really, yeah, it's really great. And they're pretty active actually. Yeah. So I would like to thank you so much for joining us and also like taking time to write, like questions and comments and all. So now let's take some of their questions. I will start with some of that we may have already answered. We'll not take them, but I think there's so many great questions as well. So the first one is one asked by George Levira. How do you start with AI in the company?
How did
So
I start with
I
AI
think
in
he
my
was
company?
trying, I think he was trying to ask maybe an existing company, how can an existing company adapt AI in their maybe service or product?
Yeah. I mean, great question. And so let me tell you first my experience, right? So as a company or at work, we decided to start working with clients that had AI problems. So we started hiring people that knew AI, that knew machine learning, and we started sort of like applying for jobs that, or responding to other companies that needed help in machine learning. So for us, it was very simple. It was just let's do this and let's pursue those type of problems. For other companies that they have a line of business and they do something else, transitioning into machine learning and starting using AI usually comes down to a couple of things. So number one is it helpful for us? And for some companies, it isn't. And there is no point of trying to transition to something that's not going to help them. But assuming it is helpful, they just need somebody evangelizing that inside the company. If you're a developer and you're working on a company and you know that you can help that company with machine learning, you are the one that can make this happen. You're the one that's going to talk to your manager, to the CEO of the company, or to whoever makes decisions and prove that you can help the company using machine learning. This is something very common. I've seen this done before. People that ask for Google Analytics data for their company. Hey, do we have Google Analytics data for the website? They take that data, they're given access to that data. They take that data and they reshape the data, they analyze the data, they find patterns in the data, and they come back and talk to their managers and show them some sort of result. Like, for example, hey, listen, this is an analysis that I did on this data. And I found out that by doing this and that, we should be able to increase this thing here. Therefore, we're going to be able to sell more of our product. So doing, showing, not telling, it's a great way to for your manager to say, that's interesting. How can we support you doing that? Or let me explore that. And that way, I've seen a lot of people sort of like introducing machine learning into their organization. So it starts from the bottom with the person who thinks it can help and showing something, and it starts growing from there. That my recommendation to you, assuming that you're a developer, would be that. So find opportunities where you think you can help your company. Try to find some data, grab some data, do some analysis. It doesn't have to be exhaustive. It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be enough to show value. And that will be a much easier conversation if you're able to show something. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thank you. I hope he's still listening to us and he's able to get that. There's another question which was asked by it's George again. He asked the resource for practicing machine learning or deep learning. I think you answered this.
Yeah, that was
one of the courses.
We're talking about some courses at the beginning. Yeah, my suggestion would be to go to the beginning, and we gave some recommendations about some courses for machine learning.
Yeah. Also, Didier Radukunda asked, is it necessity for machine learning engineer to be a software developer or engineer at the same time, or for one who want to start a career in machine learning? I think he's trying to ask the lifetime.
So the machine learning engineer does require software content. There is no way around that. So if you're going to be a machine learning engineer, software engineering principles are going to be part of your job. Now, how you learn and how you go about it, it doesn't really matter. Like what usually happens is that software people start incorporating machine learning techniques into their tool set and they become machine learning engineers, but it could be the other way around. You might start with data. You might start as a mathematician, learns a lot of theory about machine learning and start incorporating software engineering principles, and it's totally fine. So the path you take to get there doesn't really matter. What is clear to me is that for a machine learning engineer, yes, you do need software engineering principles as part of your tool set, because machine learning engineering is about that. It's about putting models in production and allowing users use them. So yeah.
Yes, there's also another question actually. So George, it was asked by George again. He asked the sites that you'd recommend for practice. He mentioned Kaggle. He probably was
Yep.
wondering if you have other sites that you'd recommend for practice.
I mean, Kaggle is great. So just so one thing to keep in mind is that Kaggle, it's a thing on itself. So Kaggle is great to get exposed to a lot of different data sets and different problems. Kaggle competitions, however, they require very particular skills that will definitely help you, but there are specific skills. Like competing on Kaggle competitions does not require the same exact skills they're going to need in a production environment. They're very different skills, very different mentality. But Kaggle is very, very useful for you to get exposed to different exercises, to different techniques, to different type of problems that you're going to be facing in your life. So, by all means, definitely, if you want to use Kaggle for your benefit and practicing, yeah.
Someone is asked, uh, how is machine learning being utilized in healthcare industry? Maybe if you have worked on any health problems.
So repeat the question for me, sorry.
How is machine learning being utilized in healthcare industry?
Oh, in healthcare. So I'm not a specialist there, but I can tell you that healthcare has been using machine learning for a long time right now. Like for example, specific computer vision. You can use it to analyze X-rays. For example, let's say you have a bunch of specialists right now, and they want to do. I mean, they're gonna be looking at X-rays to detect problems with the person. So one way to utilize computer vision is by help those specialists focused on what's really important about those X-rays. So let's say 1 out of 100 patients have a problem, only one of them. The specialist still needs to review and look at 100 X-rays. So using computer vision, you might sort of like pre-analyze those X-rays and discard any X-ray that clearly does not show a problem. That doesn't mean that you have an algorithm that can detect the problem. It means that the algorithm can detect when there is clearly not a problem. And that is a way easier problem to solve. So now the specialist, instead of having to go through 100 X-rays, they only need to go through 20 of them. The ones that are borderline, we're not sure. And now the human can actually make a decision. But computer vision is helping them reduce the amount of work that they have to do, right? So that's one application. There are many, many applications. Yesterday, I was reading a thread. I don't remember who posted it. Might have been Vladimir, who you had here on this space here before, talking about skin cancer, right? And how computer vision can help with skin cancer. So yeah, there are many, many great applications for sure in the healthcare space.
Yeah, actually, and you also remind me, DeepLearning.ai has a great specialization on medicine, which is really great. So for someone who would like to learn about AI for medicine, that's something also to check about. And to also follow people who talk about things like that as well. Like you mentioned, Vladimir Haritakov.
Yep.
Yeah, like there are a lot to learn from people, especially who work closely with those industries or in some ways.
Yep.
There's one last question, which is kind of similar to the one we had, but I think it's okay to also add some thought to it. He asked, An advice for someone working at a company which has only just introduced data science or machine learning department?
So if you're, let's say you're a software developer, just try to answer this question from an interesting angle. Let's say you are a software developer and your company is now introducing deep learning or machine learning techniques. My recommendation is try to be on those projects. Like, do whatever it takes to be part of the team that's going to be working on those projects, because you're going to be able to grow with them. Getting paid to learn, it's an amazing opportunity. Like, if you can learn machine learning on your job while you're getting paid, I mean, what's better than that, right? Instead of having to spend your nights reading books, you can now learn on the job. They're going to be paying you for doing that. So try to be there. How do you be part of that team? Again, it's showing, not telling. You can go and ask, or you can go and research what they're going to be working on. Try to learn a technique. Try to spend 4 hours one day to learn that technique, and go and just offer a suggestion. Just say, hey, you know what? I've learned about this. Can I be part of that team? So, it's really hard to give advice without knowing your specific situation. But generally, I will try to be part of that team, whatever it takes, because that team will help you grow and you're going to be getting paid for it. So.
Thank you so much. I think we are actually getting to the end of this conversation. That was really awesome. So I'm really grateful for hosting you, Santiago. I think this was a really learning experience for me and for all the people listening to us, or who listening to us later, watching record. So thank you so much. I can't just find a way to express it, but yeah, just thank you so much.
No, thank you for hosting me, for sure. It was really fun.
Thank you a lot. And also, I would like to thank all our audience who engaged in the comments. Like, they asked a great question. And like I say, like, they are joining us from all parts of the world. Some of them may be in their early morning. Actually, like Santiago, it's in early morning.
It's 11:30 my time now.
Oh,
11:24 my time. Morning. Yeah.
yeah. When we started, it was around 9:30. So
9:30. Yeah.
yeah, and also, like, there's some people, it's 9:30 p.m. now. So like, I want to thank all of you for joining us, for asking great question, and Santiago for like giving us a lot of best practice ideas and tactic on how to do machine learning in the right way. As a last reminder for all people who have signed up, they'll get an email from deeplearning.ai. So please fill the survey, give us feedback on how the event went and what else would like to see in the next events. And you also get 50% off on deeplearning.ai course. So if you want to get started, you can take advantage of that. And also, there are other courses that Santiago mentioned that are completely free. So it's just about to get started. If you want to do machine learning, I think this conversation was really a gateway, maybe they said that. Yeah, like, if you get that survey, please give us the feedback and take an opportunity of this deeplearning.ai promotion. And yeah, come again for the next event. And I think, actually, Santiago, maybe next time, if you would like to join us again, we can talk about hard things like computer vision specifically and machine learning operation.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll be happy to have you again. And yeah, thank you. I think there's no better way to end this than to say thank you so much once again.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you.